Elizabeth Short, often referred to by the nickname the Black Dahlia, met a tragic and mysterious end in Los Angeles in 1947. Her case has remained one of the most notorious unsolved murders in American history, captivating the public's imagination for decades. Elizabeth Short was a young woman with aspirations of becoming an actress, and she found herself caught in the allure of Hollywood. But her dreams were tragically cut short when her body was discovered brutally mutilated and left in a vacant lot on January 15, 1947. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in Boston, Massachusetts, and raised in Medford, a suburb of Boston. She was the third of 5 daughters born to Cleo and Phoebe May Short. Her father's disappearance in the early 1930s, which later turned out to be a case of abandonment, left the family in financial turmoil. Elizabeth grew up during the Great Depression, a time when opportunities for a brighter future seemed to dwindle for many. She moved to different cities in her late teens, living with her father briefly in California and later in Florida, all while dreaming of a career in show business. By 1946, Elizabeth had settled in Los Angeles, hoping to make a name for herself in the world of entertainment. The city was a magnet for those seeking fame and fortune, but it was also a place where dreams could easily crumble. Elizabeth struggled to find steady work as an actress, relying on odd jobs and her charm to get by. She became known in some circles as the Black Dahlia, a nickname that allegedly referenced her dark hair and penchant for wearing black clothing, as well as the film The Blue Dahlia, which was released around the same time. On January 15, 1947, a passerby named Betty Berzinger was walking with her young daughter in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles when she made a gruesome discovery. Lying in an empty lot, Elizabeth Short's body had been severed in half at the waist. The brutality of the crime was unlike anything the police had seen before. Her body had been posed, with her arms raised above her head and her legs spread apart. The corpse was completely drained of blood, and her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating a grotesque smile known as the Glasgow smile. The details of the autopsy report revealed the extent of the torture she endured. Short's body showed signs of blunt force trauma to the head, and the cause of death was determined to be a combination of brain hemorrhaging and shock caused by the cuts to her face and body. The precise surgical manner in which her body was bisected suggested that the killer had some knowledge of anatomy or medical procedures. This led investigators to theorize that the murderer could have been a surgeon, a medical student, or someone with similar skills. The investigation into Elizabeth Short's murder was one of the largest ever undertaken by the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD. Detectives sifted through countless leads, interviewing hundreds of suspects and persons of interest, but the complexity of the case made it difficult to solve. The public and the media became obsessed with the murder, with newspapers sensationalizing every detail. The nickname the Black Dahlia soon became synonymous with the case, and it only fueled the media circus that surrounded it. One of the challenges the police faced was the sheer number of false confessions. Over the years, more than 50 people claimed responsibility for the murder of Elizabeth Short, but none of these confessions could be corroborated with the evidence found at the scene. The LAPD's investigation was further complicated by the interference of reporters and the manipulation of crime scene details to sell newspapers. This muddied the waters and made it difficult for detectives to separate fact from fiction. Many theories emerged regarding who the killer could have been, with several notable suspects rising to prominence over time. One such suspect was Dr. George Hodel, a physician with a reputation for eccentricity and a troubled past. Hodel's son, Steve Hodel, a former LAPD detective, later wrote a book accusing his father of being the Black Dahlia's killer. Steve Hodel presented circumstantial evidence, including photographs and a darkroom in his father's home, suggesting that George Hodel was capable of such a crime. Despite the compelling nature of his claims, no definitive evidence has been found to conclusively link George Hodel to the murder. Another significant suspect was Leslie Dillon, a bellhop and former mortician's assistant. Dillon's knowledge of surgical techniques and his suspicious behavior during police questioning put him in the spotlight for a time. However, inconsistencies in his statements and a lack of concrete evidence eventually led to his release without charges. Other suspects included various men Short had been romantically linked to or seen with in the days leading up to her murder, but these leads also failed to produce definitive results. Some accounts have painted Elizabeth Short as a woman living on the edge of society, associating with unsavory characters in the hopes of advancing her career. However, others have portrayed her as a tragic figure caught in a web of circumstances beyond her control, exploited by the very city that promised her fame and fortune. In reality, she was a young woman trying to make a life for herself in a world that could be unforgiving to those who dared to dream big. As the years passed, the case of the Black Dahlia faded from the headlines, but it never truly left the public consciousness. It inspired numerous books, movies, and even conspiracy theories, with many writers and amateur detectives attempting to solve the mystery on their own. The unsolved nature of the case continues to draw speculation and intrigue, as people ponder what kind of person could have committed such a heinous act, and how they managed to evade justice for so long. The legacy of Elizabeth Short's murder is a stark reminder of how the line between victim and sensation can blur in the eyes of the public and the media. While Elizabeth was undeniably the victim of a horrific crime, she was also the subject of speculation and myth-making that turned her into something more than just a person. She became a symbol of Hollywood's dark side, a cautionary tale of a young woman whose dreams were shattered in the most brutal way imaginable. Today, more than 75 years later, the case of the Black Dahlia remains officially unsolved. Advances in forensic science have yet to bring new breakthroughs that could definitively identify her killer. The mystery persists, tantalizing true crime enthusiasts and remaining a haunting story in the annals of American crime history. The brutal nature of the crime, the stark contrast between Elizabeth Short's hopeful aspirations and her tragic end, and the persistent enigma of her unsolved murder have immortalized her in popular culture. Elizabeth Short's death is not just a story of a brutal crime. It is also a narrative about the perils of fame, the underbelly of Hollywood, and the enduring power of mystery. Thank you for listening to another episode of Loopholery, your go-to podcast channel for quick, witty, and insightful takes on random topics, all in 8 minutes or less. Whether we're diving into quirky facts, exploring weird loopholes, or just pondering life's strange questions, we keep it short, fun, and engaging. Perfect for curious minds on the go. Like or subscribe, and get your fix of unpredictable knowledge bites.